The buzz of seeing teams finally launch their brand new cars just never goes away, and finally we get the first piece of the 2022 grid, with Haas launching a 3D render of their new car. I thought this would be a good opportunity to give my thoughts on our very first glimpse of what the brand new generation of cars will look like, and also talk about the team itself in terms of are we going to see them get back up the grid in 2022, and what the realistic expectations should be for them this season. The livery that the team are going to be running with is fairly similar to the livery last year. Of course, the U-Phoria title sponsor is on full display, and I'd actually say that in a way, it's actually a little bit more simpler than the livery last year. If we just compare this side-on shot with the 2021 car, you can see that last year, to make sure that the Russian flag was recognizable, they added a red pinstripe along the white so that you can recognize the flag as red, blue, and white. Now, on the 2022 car, the red pinstripe has been removed, so it just kind of looks like a red and blue stripe running across. And even small details like on the top of the front wing end plate, last year there was a subtle Russian flag that has now been completely removed for 2022, with just the U-Phoria sponsor remaining. To be honest, the 2021 livery actually really grew on me last year. I first ranked it as my 9th favorite livery, only ahead of the Williams, but again, to be honest, it really did get better for me as the season progressed, and I actually think that removing some of those little details like the red pinstripe and the flag on the end plate, I think it actually loses something, because regardless of what you think of the Russian sponsor and everything surrounding it, if that is your sponsor, then I think you just need to fully commit and fully embrace it. And I think even things like the Haas logo could be a little bit bigger, because on a plain white car, it just looks a little bit empty. But either way, that's just my initial thoughts about the livery, although of course we need to wait and see what the actual real physical car will look like, because I'm sure my opinion will change. Anyway, apart from the livery, the thing that I've been most excited to see is what a realistic interpretation of these 2022 rules would actually look like. Now, we have to remember that this is a very carefully prepared CGI render in very dark lighting, which obviously is done on purpose, so I'm sure there are many things that Haas either don't want us to see or just didn't even put in their render. Now, the thing that I love the most was the front nose, because the nose on the show car was way too wide in my opinion, and I love that it was a lot sleeker and more aggressive on the Haas. The thing that I didn't love as much, or was just surprised about, was with how wide those side pods were. Now, obviously the shape of the side pods is not dictated by Haas, it's dictated by the Ferrari power unit, so they have to work around what Ferrari give them, but that makes me even more intrigued to see the Ferrari or even the Alfa Romeo, because although the side pod tapers in nicely towards the back, and although the inlet itself is fairly small, the side pods just look really bulky, and I'm interested to see if that's actually the trend for all of the Ferrari powered cars. Overall, it's amazing to finally see a real 2022 car even in rendered form, and whilst I still think that it looks a little bit plain in terms of some of the aero and the livery, it's cool to finally get into the launch season, and at the end of the day, let's be honest, if it does the business on the track, then that's all that matters. So those were my quick thoughts on the car, but now let's get into the team itself, because in 2021 and for 2022, there have been a lot of changes that have been made behind the scenes. Now, the simplest way that I can describe Haas for the last 3 or so years is that it really does feel like it's 1 step forward and then 2 steps back, but certainly off the track the team has made major changes both in terms of their facilities and personnel. Now, in 2021, Haas acquired a brand new facility on the other side of the Ferrari fence in Maranello. Now, with all of the cost cap arriving, it gave Ferrari a major problem, because Ferrari has never been shy on spending what it takes to stay at the top, but with the cost cap, one of the things that they knew that they would have to cut down on was the number of staff. Now, the good news is that it doesn't mean that loads of people would be losing their jobs, because whilst Ferrari needed to slim down, Haas has needed to expand, so a lot of the Ferrari employees have been moved over to Haas and in their brand new Maranello facility. Now, they've also hired Simone Resta, who was at Ferrari back in 2019 and 2020 as their brand new technical director, and all of this expansion is with the hope to become a bigger, but also a more independent team. The big goal with their new facilities and the new staff is to also have more of their design, development, and manufacturing to be done in-house. Of course, with some parts, it's more beneficial and more cost-effective to outsource it to your partners, but all of this is to make sure that they understand the problems like they had in 2019 better, and also to be able to sort them out in a shorter space of time, or even spot them before they become apparent on the track. Although you can look at them strengthening their ties with Ferrari, it's not that they're trying to become a Ferrari 2.0 or anything, and I want to stress that the two teams are not like Red Bull and AlphaTauri. It's just that Gene Haas has been very clever in working with Ferrari to build a relationship that might help them out a little bit later, but also at the same time using that relationship to grow his own team as they try to rebuild and get back to the midfield. Ultimately, even Ferrari want to see Haas do better, because the truth is, the Ferrari power unit has not exactly had much success outside of the Ferrari team. I'm not going to go through each of the power units and each of the teams because I actually sent out a tweet which I'll put up on the screen, but as far as the Ferrari engine outside of the main Ferrari team, their last podium was at Suzuka back in 2012 with Sauber, with Kamui Kobayashi, and they've only ever won one race, which was with Seb in a Toro Rosso back in 2008. So yes, Ferrari and Haas need to become a podium threat at some point to just boost the morale of the teams and their partnership. And it would be great if we could see Haas get their first podium in 2022, even if it does come from fluky or chaotic circumstances, but hey, at the end of the day, a podium is a podium. My biggest frustration with Haas, however, is that all of that is great. I love the Haas team. I think it's great to have an American team on the grid. It gives the sport a more global presence. I love the vibe of the team when they first started, and the fact that they are a true and honest independent team, which is a dying breed in modern F1. I also like that they're expanding and getting bigger with more people getting jobs. And yet, despite all of that, the two things that I still have doubts about is their management and their driver lineup. Now, when it comes to me judging drivers when they are literally driving the slowest cars on the grid, and especially if they're rookies, I've always said that I don't expect them to be scoring points or anything like that, and I certainly did not expect this from their drivers when I saw the performance of the car in Bahrain. But I still want to see glimpses and a small sign of potential that can make me think that, do you know what, if you gave this driver a midfield car like an Aston Martin or an Alpine, they could consistently get good results out of those cars. Now, when it comes to Mick Schumacher, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I have got a dedicated video in the works about Mick and his potential in Formula 1, but as far as his rookie season, I thought he did a pretty good job. First and foremost, he dominated his teammate in every way possible, and even though he was in the slowest car on the field, there were glimpses of brilliance. The two that stand out were Hungary, where he really showed a good amount of fight at times, and then especially in Turkey, where he put together a stunning lap in qualifying and then got unlucky in the race to be taken out by Alonso. Now, don't get me wrong, he was a little bit too accident prone at times, but I'm going to let that slide because it was his rookie season and because we know that the car was very difficult to drive. Although at the same time, I don't want to be seeing too many of those same mistakes come back in 2022. As far as Nikita Mazepin, for the most part, he was exactly what I expected. I didn't see any glimpses of brilliance. He got battered by his teammate, with their qualifying difference especially being very worrying at how far off Mazepin was in the same car. And then as a pairing, they were terrible. They almost came together as Zandvoort and then blamed each other after the session. Then they actually did crash into each other at Monza, and all year long they didn't work well together for the good of the team, thinking more about themselves. And also, even though they faked it quite well, I don't think they even like each other that much either. This lineup does not work unless they have a miraculous turnaround and actually start working together, which I don't really see. I just don't think that this driver lineup as a pairing will be able to get the most for the team with what car they are given. However, it's not just the drivers who are to blame in my opinion. Günther Steiner, as many people know, is a team principal that I've had my doubts about for well over a year. And quite frankly, after the friction between Roman and K-Mag, Günther Steiner did not prove to me at all that he had learned from that experience, and he once again in 2021 was not able to control both Schumacher and Mazepin. Quite honestly, if by the end of this year the team doesn't improve, and if their drivers continue to cause friction within the team, I think serious questions need to be asked about the future of Günther Steiner. I thought that in 2020, I thought that in 2021, and I still think that going into 2022. Something about this trio of their two drivers and the team principal is not right. Whether one of them has to go, two of them, or all of them, I just don't see this as a cohesive combination that will really get Haas to where they want to be. And I think that even if Haas gave them, say, the 4th quickest car on the grid, I think those three will still find a way to underachieve and maybe finish 5th. There is just so much about Haas that could be so good with all of the positive changes going on behind the scenes, and with the financial support that Gene Haas is not scared to put into his own team. But ultimately, even if they get a better car, which I'm sure that they will, I'm still far from convinced that this team is good enough to be anywhere near the likes of McLaren, or maybe even the likes of Aston Martin in 2022. In my opinion, there is a lot to prove, and it's time for this team and their drivers to actually start delivering on the team's potential. Well, there you have it, another video wrapped up. Don't forget to let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below about their 2022 car and what you think about their driver lineup and just the team in general. Now, don't forget, if you did enjoy this video, then drop it a like and also smash that subscribe button to support the channel, and I will see you in the next one.